After that fateful night, Hung never returned to his father's house again. He took several days off from work, citing illness as an excuse, but in reality, it was to find a way to understand what was happening in his own family. The questions were like needles piercing his mind, driving him almost crazy. But the more he tried to find a reason, the more panicked he became with the speculations he had made up. He remembered the times Ma came home with red, swollen eyes, saying it was due to lack of sleep. The small bruises on her arms, which she always hid behind her long sleeves. The times she suddenly fell silent when he asked, "Are you hiding something from me?" And then, he began to remember his father's Mr. Lack. A quiet man, always smiling gently, but deep in his eyes, cold as a bottomless pit. Something was very wrong. And it didn't just happen. Hung searched for the old maid Mrs. Tu, who was rumored to have had an ambiguous relationship with Mr. Lack. She had left the village a long time ago, but through a few phone calls, he found her residence in a poor boarding house in the neighboring district. Mrs. Tu was now old, her figure trembling, living alone with an incense stick always burning in the corner of the house. When Hung asked, she said nothing. She just silently poured tea, then let out a deep sigh. Only when he was about to leave did she softly say, "There are houses that retain unwilling souls. Not everyone who lives there is still themselves." That vague statement made Hung shiver more than anything. He asked her about his mother, a gentlewoman who died of a sudden heart attack 10 years ago. Mrs. Tu paused. After a long while, she just shook her head slightly. "Your mother died, not from heart disease, but from seeing something she shouldn't have seen." At the same time, at the old house at the end of the Red Alley, Ma began to show strange signs. She often whispered to herself, sitting for hours in front of the old altar with the portrait of a woman, Hung's mother. She cleaned that altar every day, as if it was the only place where she felt safe. Mr. Lack became quieter and quieter, but sometimes he had sudden fits of anger. One day, the neighbors heard him scream in the middle of the night. "Shut up! You're dead. Why are you coming back to haunt me?" A shadow, a secret, and a fear was gradually taking shape. That night, in a fit of insomnia, Ma carried her child out to sit on the porch. The child was still sleeping soundly, and she looked up at the dark sky, whispering as if talking to someone. "My son, if one day I'm no longer with you, don't blame me. Because in this place, no one can leave until they have paid their debts." At that moment, a strong wind swept through the yard. The door behind her opened, and Mr. Lack stood silently in the dark, looking at her intently without blinking. That gaze was no longer the gaze of a father. Ma shivered, hugging the child tighter. But she did not run. She did not scream. She only spoke softly, like someone who had known this would happen. "If you dare to touch my child this time, I swear, I will let the whole village know who you really are." Mr. Lack said nothing. He just turned around and left. But his steps trembled as if he was carrying a ghost on his shoulders. And at that moment, from inside the house came the sound of a child crying, even though the child was still sleeping in Ma's arms. The cry came from Mrs. Howe's old bedroom, Hung's mother. A room that had been locked for many years. A room that only the dead had the key to. That night, Hung returned to his old house, for the first time in many days of hiding. He quietly entered like a thief, but not to steal anything, but to find a piece of memory that was sealed by fear. The house was eerily silent. The smell of incense, the smell of mold, and the musty smell of something long dead blended together like a silent whisper. He walked step by step towards his mother's room, the room that had been locked for 10 years. The lock was rusty, but strangely, someone had opened it a long time ago. Hung pushed the door open, and the first thing that caught his eye was the portrait of his mother, Mrs. Howe, hanging right in the middle of the wall. The eyes in the painting seemed to be following his every breath. Below the picture was an old wooden cabinet. He bent down and opened it. Inside were a series of paper boxes, letters, notebooks, and an old diary, the cover stained with time. He trembled as he turned each page. The first page read, "July 4th, I saw him looking at the maid with eyes, no longer of a father in the family." Hung flipped to the next page. "September 12th, I asked him about Tu's pregnancy. He smiled. But it was not my husband's smile. October 1st, I saw blood on her nightgown. She said she fell down the stairs. But her eyes did not lie. He could not read any further. His throat was tight. His heart was pounding. Hung understood. His mother knew everything. And she had died not long after. Not of heart disease, but of being murdered or driven to death. Suddenly from behind, a hand touched his shoulder. Hung turned around. It was Mai. Her face was pale, her lips pale. She held an old letter in her hand, trembling as she handed it to him. I found this behind the mirror in my father's room. Hung opened it. The writing was scribbled, as if written in haste. If anyone reads this letter, please know that I can no longer control myself. There is something living inside me. It is me, but also not me. It is the past, it is blood, it is desire, it is punishment. I am afraid that one day I will harm my daughter-in-law, just like I harmed her mother. Signed, Lack. They both looked at each other. A chill ran down their spines. The door behind them opened by itself, as if someone had just passed by. The sound of a child crying rang out again. But this time, it was the sound of two children. Mai hugged her child, trembling. There is only one child. So what is that sound? And then, from the corner of the house, a small figure passed by like smoke, a little girl about 3 years old, wearing a white dress, long hair covering her face. She walked across the hallway, straight into Mrs. Howe's room, and then disappeared. Not a sound. Not a single footstep. Only the echo of the old saying that Hung's mother used to say when she lulled him to sleep remained. My child, if one day I am no longer here, remember, I will never leave you. I will only wait on the other side, to prevent the evil spirits from taking you with me. Mai stepped back. Hung looked deeply into that empty space. And he knew his mother had never left. Because in that house, sins had never been forgiven. And the ghosts had never been released. Tien kok tre kan lang dan sao kan qua fong ba hao. In Hung Thursday kan dong lai kong phi la am tan, ma la noi ran denang noi nguk, nu the sieng gui na dang nin tho kung ho. Hung kip kan qua fong lai. My dung ben, te van om kan guy. Dua be de theten ge tu luk now, and Hung hai mat my ti du ho, kong vi met, ma vi so. Ho kong the roy di nai duak. Ko du gi du nyo ho lai. Mo du gi du chua hon tet. Thay, bi ga du kong muon lam hai tu amen, my noi no. No nu dang, tim me. Hung gat ki. On no lai and Hung dong na ky, va buck Thursday koi kung kwa cha min. Mo chui su kien roy ram, gi ron, and Hung dang dan hien hin nu buck tran by xe nat ne duak gip lai. My dua ramot tam on cu kok mako tim duak trong non tu go gon bon tho. Trong on la mot bi ga tam ba tuoi, mak ve trang, doi mat sang goi, va ban kan la nuoi fu nu dang om kan, chin la ba hao. Mat sao on ko dong chu. Kan gai ut kwami, biha, 2001. Hung chet sung. Kan gai ut. Tuc la, on ko mot dua m gai? My nin on. Ho chua tung ne ai trong ho hung nak din mot nuoi m gai ten ha, trong tat ca tu, chi ko ten on, hung, la kan dak nat. Kong ai tung noi toi mot dua tre Thursday high. Te on run mo kwan so ho kao cu. Sai ten ha de by gat zoa bangin uc du. Ben kan la dong chu, tu vong, kong arong gwen nan, 2004. Mo dua tre ba toi, mat tich, kong ly du ro rang, va by zoa koi tri no qua ca dong ho nu the chua tung tun tai. My ti tam. La ko bi ve trang dim qua. La bi ha. M qua on. Kan but lan shuyen qua tung dat song. Hung dung bad day. On lao song tang ham, noi nam shua van by qua kin, kong ai duak veo. Truak de cha on cam tuet, noi du la ko chua du noi him. In Hung geo, on kong kan so nua. O qua de gi set. In Hung kai on cam te mo Thursday, no bad ra de dang. Kin qua mo tone. Mot lan hoi lan phut lin nu tu dien guk. Tang ham no, yut, va toi den nu muc. In hung kai den pin dying tho I bat sang, on sang roi veo gak tuong. Ko mot cheek cui tre con. Mot sai cui bang go, fu de mang nin. Ben trong la mot cheek ve trang no, dirach, vong vi talk tre va mot con bup be by dam shuyen qua bang ca chuk k kim. My dua te lin ning, nin tieng kak. Troy, ai lai lam ve voi mot dua tre. Hum goith up suang. On cham te veo con bupb, tmot tiang that vang lin trong dao. Dung dung vom. On Louis Lai. Mat toi sam. Trong koen kakai, hin on va qua. Mot dua be by nat trong tang ham. Moi dem du gao kak goi me. In Hong Kong ai traloi. Mot nuoi dan on buk veo, take him de nit. Wong mat lan tan. Mot tiang het cat and gang wa Thursday. Varoi, lang. My. Hung bad day. On nin thay trend buck tuong long low, net ve and gegen goak bang than cui. Con so bie. On ti tau nu muan goi han dua chua tung beat. Howe, nu con o day, on xin loi. On kong beat gica. On kong dua bao vem. In hung geo on o day roy. On se kong de mama by chan trong bong toy. Bong din lap low. Kong kai dac quan nu muan vo tung. Varoy, mot bon te no dat lin vi on tu fi sao. Len get. My het lin, in Hong Kong zoe lai. On kong so nua. Trong on geo la mot noi dao con lon han ca so high. Phi cham de chi nai, on noi ki. Can duok siu thot, ha. Mot lan geo the man shuyen qua tang ham, quan theo tien kaken gat quang. Valan dao tien trong oe me nam, tsai cui go no lang lurung lin, kong v geo, ma v, ai du vua dung de bin trong. That night, when the whole family had gone to their room to rest, I couldn't sleep. The little girl dreamed again. This time, she didn't just cry. She spoke. Clearly. I'm so cold, Mom, why don't you open the door for me? I jumped up, her heart aching. Beside her, the little girl was sobbing in her dream, her arms outstretched as if waiting for someone to hug her. The space in the room suddenly became stuffy. She looked out the window. Outside, the shadows of the trees swayed as if someone was standing there looking in. The next morning, I told Hum about it. He was silent, his lips pressed tightly together. Then he took me to the study, where all the papers of his father, Mr. Du, were kept. Inside, they found a small, black-covered notebook with no title. When opened, the handwriting was hurried and trembling as if it was being written in a hurry. I didn't mean to. I just wanted it to be quiet. That cry, every night was like thousands of needles stabbing into my head. It called for its mother. But where was its mother? She left. Left that creature to me. I locked it up. But it kept calling. Constantly crying. Until one night. I did something that couldn't be undone. I didn't kill it. I just lost control. I buried it in the basement. Right under the third board, where the wooden crib was. My shivered, her eyes lost focus. She didn't dare ask any more questions. Hung stood up, coldly. You have to dig it up. When the third board was pried open, underneath was not just dirt, but a small layer of shroud. Hung's hands trembled as he dug with both hands. The soil underneath was dry, gray, and cold. He found a small forearm bone, only about 15 centimeters long. Then a small, cracked skull. Ma burst into tears. She hugged her daughter who was standing behind her, as if afraid that she would disappear like that. They found little Ha. She was murdered. Buried alive, or starved to death, frozen, in her own father's basement. And then, the anger began to manifest. That night, the whole house shook. It was no longer the murmuring sounds in the wind, but a shrill scream. The basement door swung open automatically. The lights in the house flickered on and off. The mirror cracked. Family photo frames fell and shattered. I saw the little girl in the mirror, eyes bloodshot, white dress covered in mud. The little girl stood there, saying nothing, just staring at and the baby in her arms. "Mom, don't leave me." She fainted. When I woke up, she found herself lying in the shrine room. Hung sat next to her, holding his head. He called a monk. The abbot of Lin Kuang Pagoda, a person who could see the souls that had not yet been liberated. He was old, but his eyes were as bright as a lamp illuminating the darkness. After chanting the mantra, the monk said, "This little soul does not want to harm anyone. It is just stuck between two worlds. Because of too much injustice. It was murdered by its biological father, and no one has ever burned incense for it or called its name properly. It still thinks it has been abandoned." Hung collapsed, kneeling before the altar. "I am Ha's older brother. I take all the sins on behalf of my father. Please forgive me. Please go, don't be cold, don't be lonely anymore." The monk began the ceremony. Incense smoke billowed. The air was thick, as if time had stopped. In the middle of the ceremony, a baby's cry echoed from the basement. Then it gradually lightened, gradually lightened. Then it was silent. Nothing more. Only the incense smoke quietly spread out like a hand caressing the past. After that night, Mai's little girl no longer dreamed of anything. The house also returned to peace. They set up a small altar in the yard, dedicated to Ha, who had not yet grown up, had not yet lived, but had left a lifelong scar. On the day of sending Ha's soul off, Mai lit incense, tears falling on the cheeks of the daughter in her arms. "You will never be left behind, I swear." A gentle wind blew by, blowing away the small photo on the altar. In the photo was a little girl in a white dress, smiling. That smile, for the first time, was no longer sad. The end.